Hi, my name's Ben Shepard and I'm co-editor of Global ETF Profits. We're finally coming off a tumultuous midterm election cycle which saw Republicans, particularly more conservative Tea Party-backed Republicans, make strong gains in both the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. A lot of these more conservative folks were running on platforms promising to either roll back what they see as the more onerous provisions of healthcare reform and the tighter regulation of Wall Street, or even promising to push for an outright repeal of these laws. Outright repeals probably aren't likely. These reform efforts were a cornerstone of President Obama's 2008 campaign, so any attempts to repeal these laws will likely meet with a veto. And despite the gains that the Republicans made, they just don't have the majorities required in both houses of the U.S. Congress to overcome that veto. They will likely be able to get some changes to the laws pushed through as both sides have to play ball and reach some compromises to really get anything done and prevent just total gridlock in Washington. There are a couple of areas where both sides do agree, though, and one of the big ones is energy policy. Since President Obama took his self-described shellacking in the midterms, he signaled that he's willing to talk about expanding incentives for nuclear to encourage greater utilization of nuclear power. He's also willing to look at making greater use of U.S. natural gas reserves. And these are two areas that we actually have covered in our global ETFs portfolio. We have the iShares Dow Jones Oil Equipment and Services Index. The ticker on that is IEZ, which we've had in the portfolio for a couple of months now. Given the name, it's fairly obvious that the focus is on oil equipment and services, but experience shows that typically where you find oil, you find natural gas. So all of the portfolio holdings within that fund are involved in both sides of the business. So while it's more of a derivative type exposure, the fund will benefit from building new natural gas pipelines from the major fields in the Northeast United States and the Midwest, moving that recovered gas to the markets and to the areas where it's most needed. And that's an area where we'll likely see a really increased pace of investment in the coming years. For instance, in the Marcellus Shale in the Pennsylvania region, there's expected to be $10 billion or more worth of infrastructure spending over the next few years, and that's just a huge opportunity for these companies. The portfolio is also going to benefit, the fund is also going to benefit from the fact that President Obama and the Democrats have said that an expanded offshore drilling program is something that's potentially doable with increased safeguards. And this offshore deep water drilling requires a lot of really specialized equipment that also comes with a pretty hefty price tag. So obviously, the oil equipment manufacturers and the services companies are really just going to see a huge boost from this increased pace of activity. Nuclear energy is also another area where I think we're going to see sizable gains, and we're already seeing a better than 9% run up in our Market Vectors nuclear energy fund. The ticker on that is NLR, just since the midterms. A big thing there is energy security is a major concern for the U.S. Right now a lot of our oil is coming from overseas, and that's a situation that a lot of folks just don't see as being tenable. And that's something that both the Democrats and the Republicans agree on. So in addition to developing our natural gas resources, we've seen buy-in from a lot of the key constituencies into expanding our nuclear reactor fleet for power generation. If you look earlier this year, Senators John Kerry, Lindsey Graham, and Joe Lieberman were pushing through a climate bill, which ultimately met in defeat when Harry Reid changed the Senate's legislative priorities going into the midterms when it looked like his seat was particularly vulnerable, which took the climate bill off the table. But in the process of putting this bill together, the three senators actually got a buy-in from a few key environmental groups, which had been a major roadblock to expanding our nuclear capacity here in the country. The Environmental Defense Fund and the Sierra Club both agreed, or both said that While they might not explicitly support the bill, they also wouldn't come out explicitly against the bill. You know, a lot of Democrats come from states where nuclear energy is key to the utility companies, particularly legislators from states like Illinois and, you know, here in Virginia where we're based. Nuclear already supplies a lot of our electricity. So the agreement is in place, the political consensus is there. At this point, if they were to reintroduce that climate bill, minus any cap and trade provisions, they could get that done without a whole lot of effort. So those are just two of our portfolio holdings that we think are really going to benefit from the shifting power that came about as a result of the midterms. And there are several other opportunities in our portfolio, so stay tuned for upcoming issues of Global ETF Profits as we continue to dig deeper into some of these themes. Again, my name is Ben Shepard. Thanks very much for watching.